Okay, let's see if we have people joining. None so far. Okay, we do have one person who has joined us. Let's just keep it trickling in. 3 people so far. And folks who are joining, welcome aboard. We're just waiting for more people to, show up. And once we have a sizable crowd, we will get started. So just sit back and relax for now. All right. Seven people so far. So Ben, let's just give it another 20 seconds and then I'll just give you the
Sure.
go ahead.
Sounds good. Thanks, Grit.
Of course. All right, I think we can get started. We have 8 people so far. Let's go for it.
Great. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining. My name is Benjamin Hoyne. I am the program associate in Virginia for Solar United Neighbors, joined by my colleague, Sakrit Mishra, who is in our Washington, D.C. office with the beautiful sun artwork behind him in our favorite conference room there up in D.C. I'm based out of Richmond. So we kind of cover the I-95 corridor. And this is a Solar United Neighbors solar and electric vehicle or EV charger co-op information session. We'll be here for about an hour just to give you a heads up, and we'll certainly have time for Q&A. I can't actually see the chat because I'm looking at my slides, but Sakrit will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. So feel free to ask questions in the chat, and then I'll certainly stop kind of the end of each section to take questions as well. Let's see here, get my slides working. Almost there. Where is it? There we go. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. Just again, make sure you have your microphone off. Again, you can submit questions in the chat, and the webinar is being recorded. Just an FYI, we will be sending a link out probably tomorrow to everyone that registered. So those of you that are on here today, and also anyone else that did that registered but wasn't able to attend, and you'll be able to share that with partners, family members, what have you. So what is Solar United Neighbors? We are a vendor-neutral 501c3 nonprofit. We are unaffiliated with any company or any product. We're not a solar sales organization or anything like that. We really rely upon community engagement and involvement. We've got programs in 12 states. Started in DC. That's where our office is, but have programs throughout the kind of the mid-Atlantic, and then have actually spread all the way as far west as Colorado and Arizona. We also help people nationwide in the other 38 states through our help desk services. So if you have any questions, you certainly can contact our help desk at any time. And what we do is we really bring people together to address barriers to information, go through red tape, technology, policy, and a lot more. And then we also represent solar owners and consumers, as well as prospective solar owners and consumers. So Solar United Neighbors got started about 15 years ago in 2007. Our founder, Anya Schoolman, there in the photo in the sunglasses, got together with some of her neighbors back in 2007. Actually, her son, Walter, who's pictured on the left, also in sunglasses, and his friend Diego on the right, they saw the movie An Inconvenient Truth. They came home, they said, "Mom, we have to go solar." Well, Anya looked into it and quickly found that going solar was not so easy. She got her son, Walter, to go door to door to enlist the help of neighbors, about 50 neighbors, and they untangled this complicated process. At that time in Washington, D.C., there was just 2 companies that were installing solar on roofs, and they were told completely different things about basics like how to install solar PV, how much it should cost, what type of equipment you should use, taxes, regulations, permitting, and on down the list. And so the group of neighbors worked together And it took about 2 years for the whole process to happen. But eventually 45 homes in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood went solar. And after that, media attention, press attention kind of came about, and people from all over the country started calling and saying, hey, we want to do the same thing. And so Solar United Neighbors just kind of organically happened that way back in 2007. And as I said, now we've got members in all 50 states. We have staff in 12 states. We've run 315, and that number's probably gone up a little bit, 315 solar co-ops throughout the country. And that's what we're talking about here today. And we have about 50 staff members across 4 time zones. Our impact, as I mentioned, we're on the ground in 12 states. We helped over 6,000 families go solar here in the US, and that's been in an installed capacity of 54 megawatts or over 54 megawatts, which is really a utility scale size solar plant on individual rooftops. In Virginia alone, we've helped over 1,100 families go solar and had 8 megawatts installed. We've also worked on policies at the General Assembly, the State Corporation Commission, which is where laws and rules and regulation are kind of vetted and put into practice. Also local municipalities, various commissions to expand solar rights and access and increase solar deployment. We're also working towards an equitable energy system. We know that rooftop solar lets communities invest locally, creates good local jobs, and brings control of the energy system within our reach. And we're working towards a new energy system that everyone can participate in, one that's fair and equitable. And we're really proud of the work that we've done in Virginia. In our Northern Virginia, our Arlington and Falls Church Solar Co-op has been a huge part of our success in Virginia. I actually see our colleague, Helen Reinecke-Wilt, with Arlington County has joined, and I asked Helen to say a few words about Arlington's involvement in the solar co-ops, especially in Northern Virginia. Helen.
Hi, this is Helen. Can you see me?
We can see in the background. You look like
sorry. I'm in I didn't plan it out very well.
There we
sorry.
go.
And
Much better.
I can't see me, unfortunately. So I don't know how I look, but anyway, welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining today. Thanks to Solar United Neighbors for having us, and thanks for being such a terrific partner. This is our 8th year working with Sun on this co-op, and it's helping us meet Arlington's big goals to be carbon neutral by 2050. We also have a goal of installing 160 megawatts of our solar in Arlington by 2050. And so far, this co-op has brought us 3 of those megawatts, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a huge help for what we're trying to do. So we really appreciate the work that you all are doing, and we appreciate all of the participants today who are considering going solar and helping us towards our goals. So with that, I will hand it back over to Ben.
Thanks, Helen. And as Helen mentioned, these co-ops have produced 3 megawatts installed in Virginia. And as you can see in the slide, total we've installed 8 megawatts, over 8 megawatts in Virginia. So I mean, obviously that's well over a third, probably getting closer to a half of all the megawatts installed have been due to these co-ops that Arlington and other partners in Northern Virginia have been such a tremendous part of. So thanks to Helen and everyone at Arlington County and the City of Falls Church for all their tremendous help over these many years. All right, moving on. Here's our theory of change. This is really our organizational vision. Again, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. First and foremost, we want folks to go solar, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. We help support new and existing solar systems. We are installer neutral. We are technology neutral. Again, we're not affiliated with any technology, or no installers, no financial relationships there. We help folks go solar, and then we also bring people together. Also, somewhat what we were doing today, but we have many other ways that we bring folks together. We have a whole host of resources on our website. I encourage you to check out at solarunitedneighbors.org. We also have a Virginia-specific listserv where you can post questions. I'll have Sakrit put that in the chat. Additionally, we have a Solar United Neighbors of Virginia Facebook page, and you'll find people posting stuff about their panels, about things like SREX and other things that we'll get into here in a little bit. But just lots of ways for people to join together. And then we also have social events. We actually had a wonderful event in Arlington just not even a month ago in late May at a pub in Arlington on a Sunday afternoon. After all these co-ops, we traditionally host kind of a happy hour once everybody has gotten their systems installed to kind of bring together all the folks from the co-op and talk about solar issues and solar champions. And we do various happy hours and other types of social events throughout the year. And then as we get folks together, some of those people want to advocate and fight for energy rights. There's different ways to do that. Again, we can fight for net metering rights, homeowners associations, again, representing solar owners in a nonpartisan way. We know that solar energy is free and that government or monopoly utility companies should not restrict your access to it. And so as we pass more laws, we're then able to give more people access to solar, and then the cycle continues. And so what we'll cover today, kind of three major things. One, how a solar co-op works. Two, we'll dig into the technology for solar and batteries and electric vehicle chargers. And then we'll talk about the finances or economics of going solar. All right, so what is a solar co-op? So a solar co-op at its most basic is a voluntary buying group that leverages kind of a bulk discount, right? So we get a bunch of folks together and we say, hey, we all want to go solar. And then we're able to get, usually around a 15 to 20% discount because we have kind of a economy of scale. We have a large group that's ready to go in. Also, we help educate folks through information sessions like these and other things. And so this is really the best value you're going to get on installation. Our job is really to give you the tools to make an informed decision. We don't really pick solar installers. We actually have a selection committee that does that. And the selection committee for this co-op met a month ago or so and picked Solar Energy World amongst a variety of competitive bids. We issue an RFP and got several competitive bids, and the selection committee met for several hours. One weeknight again in early May, and based on various factors that folks picked, selected as they joined the co-op, that decision was made to go with Solar Energy World or SEW. It's also important to note that the group has a beginning and an end, and it's a limited time to get co-op pricing. Certainly, the co-op is open all summer. And usually once you get a proposal, you have 30 days to make a decision after you've gotten the proposal. The entire process takes a few months, which we'll get into here in a bit. But it does have a limited beginning and end. These prices don't continue for a year or anything like that, or even 6 or 9 months. We do have a co-op guide that I'll have Sakrit drop in the chat as well. Additionally, as other reasons to join the co-op, as I mentioned, we'll connect you with fellow solar enthusiasts. We're really here throughout the process, whether that's me or Sakrit or somebody at our help desk. And then we have you can become a part of a growing solar movement here in Virginia. And most importantly, there's no obligation, right? It's completely free to join this solar co-op. That's really just kind of putting your name in the hopper, so to speak. And there's no commitment to go solar at all. There's no commitment to sign the proposal or choose SEW as your installer. You're certainly welcome to get bids from other bids from the area, and we're actually happy to help you review those bids and go over your options. And at the end of the day, you can go solar with a different installer. You can choose not to go solar at all. So just, this is joining the co-op it doesn't mean you're obligated to go solar, although certainly we're a solar organization. We encourage you to do so. But at this point, there's no obligation, not until you actually would sign a contract with SEW down the line. And so in terms of the process, this is really a stakeholder-driven process. We encourage folks to participate. Learning on things like this is a big part of the process. We're going to send you emails. As you get in, we're going to screen your roof. Early on in the co-ops, we really rely on word of mouth to help get the word out. Usually we want to have at least 30 people before we choose an installer. I think this group we're up around 150 right now, so we're well past that, and that's why the installer was selected about a month ago. As I mentioned, we issue an RFP for all the solar installers. We do background checks, due diligence, reference checks, but ultimately the installer is picked by the group, right? We do not select the installer. That is done by your peers, your neighbors in Arlington and Northern Virginia. There will be a sign-up deadline as we get towards the latter stages of the co-op. I think for this group, it's August 31st or kind of the end of the summer. Again, you'll get a proposal that's customized to your house. So the co-op kind of gets, in essence, a menu of options. Usually there's a few different panel choices and a few different inverter types, and we'll get into all that. But there's kind of a menu for you to choose from that works for your budget and works for your roof and all those type of things. It'll be customized for you with the co-op pricing. As mentioned, once you actually get the proposal in hand, you'll have 30 days to make that decision. We certainly encourage folks to make that decision quickly now. Like everything else with global supply chain, solar panels are no different. And so, if you've been in the market for a car or a refrigerator or anything else that usually comes on a boat to get here, or even is made in the USA, they can be challenging. So, if you get a proposal and you have an opportunity to get something, we encourage you to do so. Kind of early bird gets the worm these days, and just about everything in the global supply chain. So again, you would sign a contract with the installer, so that would be with SEW, not with Solar United Neighbors. The installation usually takes place a few months after. There's a bit of a process. There's permits to get and all that, and the installer SEW will do that. But then your installation will happen usually 2 to 3 months after you sign a contract. So that would be like late summer or even into the fall before you do so. And then again, once everybody has gotten their installations complete, we'll have a party or a happy hour of some type. All right, with that, I'll stop and ask questions. So, Crit, are you taking care of things in the chat, or is there anything we need to bring up?
So far, so good. I've dropped some resources in the chat, but no questions so far. So
great.
Keep going. Perfect.
All right. Thank you. So now we'll get into the solar technology. Kind of how do solar panels work? So solar photovoltaic, or PV, which is what we're talking about today, converts solar energy to electricity, to direct current DC electricity. Most of today's solar market is PV technology. There's also a technology called solar thermal, which is a residential solar technology for heating water, such as like a pool or that sort of stuff. We're not discussing that today. We're really talking about solar PV or just PV. So the panel components you can see on the left here, they're really well protected. The solar cell in the middle there is protected by glass frames, etc. Each panel would then have a junction box on the back side of it. Traditionally, the panels have been about 3 feet by 5 feet. Now sometimes get up to 4 foot by 6 foot. They can be around 40 pounds. Most important thing to know about panel is they are measured in wattage. Silicon's the kind of your dominant technology. They're really built to last. They have a long life, should be over 25-year lifespan for a panel. They're hail resistant. Really, you don't need to do much of anything to panels here in Virginia. It rains enough that they get cleaned. So you don't need to get up on your roof and wash them. They're hail resistant. You don't need to get the snow off your panels. It's really kind of turnkey system. You don't need to do anything to them. So the difference between panels and then an array, once you have multiple panels, that's called a solar array or solar system. As I mentioned, panels are measured in watts, but an array or a system is going to be measured in kilowatts or kW. So obviously 1,000 watts equals 1 kilowatt. And so when you get your proposal, you'll see the system will be measured in kW, and it'll, let's say might be 5 kW or 10 kW or something like that. kW is power. And so a 10 kW system will produce more power at any one time than a 5 kW system. But that assumes peak conditions, right? Like that assumes the sun is, kind of that noonday sun, no clouds in the sky, it's generating its peak. A 10 kW system is just going to generate more than a 5 kW system. As such, it would be able to power more things in your home at that time. Then there's kilowatt hours, or kWh. This is electricity that's, what you're billed in. So when you get your bill from Dominion Energy or your utility, it'll say how much kWh you've used in a month. And so that is how much energy or how much electricity is used over a period of time. Also for your solar array, kWh will demonstrate how much electricity was produced over a period of time or over a month. Important thing to note on panel size and wattage of panels. Often people ask, how many panels do I need? Well, it's really not a question of how many panels you need. It's a question of how much wattage do you need. So as an example here, to keep the math simple on our illustration, we have a 3.6 kW system, 12 panels at 300 watts. So 300 times 12, that's 3,600 watts, or a 3.6 kW system. At the same time, you could have 400 watt panels, and you could have 9 of them. And that would also be 3,600 watts or 3.6 kW. So again, you could have 12 panels that are 300 watts, 9 panels that are 400 watts, producing the exact same amount of energy. So I just want to stress again that it's not about how many panels, it's about the wattage, because different panels can produce different watts. Once you get past the panels, another thing to consider is your racking system. These are, system components that go to the back of the panels. Primarily in Virginia, these will attach here. This is an asphalt shingle roof, which is the most common that we have in Virginia. It is a totally fine way to attach a solar array to a roof. Some other types of roofs that and racking systems that work well are a standing seam metal roof, like you see here. This is actually a clipped system. So some folks would say this is the best type of racking system for a roof, because it doesn't actually have any penetration into the roof, whereas with the asphalt shingle, there will be some nails into your roof. A rubber membrane roof is also a good roof for solar. The one roof type to note that's not great for solar is slate. Some installers will not work on slate at all. And those few that will certainly have an upcharge to do so, because it's a much more complex install. As you can imagine, slate is a really fragile kind of material, and they have to be tremendously careful in working on a slate roof, and can damage it and all those things pretty easily. So kind of what's a good roof for solar, right? We already talked about the kind of the roof type, but some other important factors are the orientation. This is a bit more of an art than a science, but kind of at its most basic level, we're in the Northern Hemisphere, and you want your solar panels to kind of face towards the equator. And so a southerly facing roof is optimal, is the best, but east and west also work just fine. South by southeast is a little bit better, because you get that morning sun is not quite as strong as the afternoon sun. And so that's why if you have a western facing roof, you have a bit more flexibility to get a more of a northern or just a due west orientation, or even a slight northwest orientation, because you got a really strong afternoon sun. So your installer will be able to review this for you. They got satellite software, and they'll be able to tell with the software, how good your roof is and the orientation and all that sort of stuff. Another important factor is shading. Ideally, you want to have little or no shading on your roof, especially in those peak generation hours, like 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is there sun hitting your roof at that time? Like in this illustration, if you have a tree that's pretty close to your roof and is blocking the panels from kind of getting sun, collecting energy, it's not going to be a great option for a roof. You also want to have enough space to mount panels. This is one of those factors where the wattage of a panel can be really important. As I mentioned, you could have 9 panels or 12 panels producing the same amount of electricity. That doesn't really matter if you have a large house with a large roof and a lot of space. If you've got kind of a snug space, or if you're in a row house or just have not a ton of usable roof space, then the efficiency of the panels, the wattage of the panels is really important, because you might be able to fit fewer panels on your roof. So, in an ideal world, you'd have a kind of a flat space on this roof, like we have here, but a lot of folks have chimneys and dormers and gables and all sorts of different kind of roof planes and pitches. But you want to make sure you have at least a couple hundred square feet of accessible space on your roof. And that's certainly something we'll review as you join the group. And the solar installer will really take a deep dive into that as well. And then kind of the quality of your roof in terms of its age is important. You don't need a new roof by any means, but you want to have a roof on the newer side that doesn't have any major damage. We certainly recommend a minimum of 10 years of roof life remaining on your roof. If you're going to have to get a new roof or do some major repairs, in the next 5 years or what have you, we really encourage you to do that before going solar. And if you have any questions about a roof and you happen to be on here and you're not in a co-op area, you certainly can contact our solar desk to help. If your roof system is not good, another option is a ground-mounted system. This is hard to do in kind of urban areas, and probably most of Arlington, this might be a challenge just for lack of space. But as you get, farther away from dense urban areas, this can be more of an option. A ground mount can be good for a few reasons. One, you can choose the orientation towards the sun. So you can, if you have the space, you can make this face due south. And so you'll just generate more electricity that way. So it's a higher producing system usually. But one of the challenges is the cost is more. So there's 2 main reasons for that. One, they have to build the racking system here as opposed to just attaching it to your house. So it's more money and kind of labor and materials. And then additionally, you're going to have to run a wire to your house, to the meter. We recommend not really more than 50 to 100 feet to the nearest meter, because they're going to have to underground the wires or trench the wires in your ground and cover it back up. And that, again, costs labor and material. So it's a more expensive install, but ultimately can be a more efficient install. But you really need to have, yard space and again, no shading. You can't put it right next to trees, that sort of thing. And then a final piece of, final major piece of your solar system is an inverter. And so what an inverter does is it converts energy from direct current to alternating current. It really conditions the energy for use in your home. The installer will suggest, what types of inverters. Usually our co-ops offer a couple different inverters. The steering inverter you see on the left, that's really for commercial systems or ground mounts. But what you're going to find in residential installs is kind of a string inverter with a DC optimizer or a micro inverter. And the inverters are really the kind of the brains of your system. They monitor the production. They can tell if the production goes down, especially with a micro inverter. And so it's really great. You can actually get an app on your phone. I have this, and just about everybody with solar has this. Become your new favorite toy, where you can look at any time of the day and see how much is my system producing right now, and you can kind of track it every 15 minutes. Maybe clouds roll through and it dips down, but then it pops back up. And with a micro inverter, you can actually do that on the panel level. And the great thing about that is, if your system all of a sudden drops down in production, for a week or so, and you're like, what's going on with that? You can look and see what each panel is doing. And maybe there's one panel that all of a sudden is either not working or significantly reduced. You can tell which panel that is, and then you would simply call your solar installer and they'd come service it and figure out what's going on. But it's really nice that you can see that panel level production with microinverters and with your new fun app. Another piece, the way the solar system hooks into your house is through the electrical panel. It's really a simple connection. Most homes don't need a system upgrade before solar, but important to note that your installer will likely ask you for a photo of your panel. That will be one of the first things that they do. And if the panel is outdated or needs an update, the installer will recognize that fairly quickly. And then we'll go over some important terminology about kind of how electricity flows. And so we've got a quick recap here. First thing and foremost, we have a solar array right on your roof, and then it flows into an inverter, which conditions the direct current for alternating current for use in your home. And then number 3, it flows to your electrical panel, and then all the electricity that your house requires will get first access to that solar. So before anything gets sent to the grid, it's going to power all that it can in your home. Kind of your house has right of first refusal, so to speak. And then if there's surplus energy, it will then flow through your utility meter and flow onto the grid. If you don't have enough energy, it's nighttime or cloudy or what have you, you actually pull electricity from the grid to power your house. And sometimes, those two things are happening simultaneously. And it's really a delicate balance that your panel and your meter are doing to, consistently power your home at that optimum level to ensure that exact amount of power you need at any one moment is in your home, and then the rest of it is either being sent to the grid or being pulled off the grid, depending on the conditions. And this kind of is an easy way or a simple way to explain net metering. And so we'll get into this a little bit deeper. And so again, we have the kind of the same illustration as before, just with a little more detail. And so again, the electrons are pulling from your solar panel and pulling from the grid simultaneously. It's a constant balancing act. But the important thing to note is that your house will get all the energy before the grid will. And if you have a surplus, it'll be sent to the meter. And when you don't have a surplus and you need electricity from the grid, it'll then get pulled off there. And so the way this works, kind of financially speaking, is you're in essence kind of building up credits and trading credits with the grid throughout the day. So during the day when you're generating some good electricity, maybe you're at work, no one's home, you're not running a lot of appliances and what have you, and you're sending electricity to the grid, you're kind of building up credits, almost like rollover minutes from the old cell phone plans. And then at night or when you need some electricity from the grid, you pull that down and those credits get whittled down. And at the end of the month, they balance that out. And the question is, did you send more to the grid than you pulled off, or vice versa? And so you'll either have surplus credits or negative credits. And negative credits is just another way of saying, you've used some electricity from the grid that you're going to owe some money on. But again, it's the great thing about net metering is you're able to supply the grid with electricity during the day, and then balance that out with electricity that you're pulling from at night. And from a financial standpoint, it's a one-to-one credit. You're getting the same credit for the electricity you're putting on the grid as you are for the electricity you're pulling off the grid. There's different daily or seasonal surpluses. This is really reviewed, as I mentioned, on a monthly basis, but really on an annual basis, because you'll probably use less electricity in the spring and the fall when you're not really using your HVAC, and those are some of the biggest electricity hogs in your house. But in the summer and the winter, especially if you have electric heat, electric air conditioning, you're going to be using a lot more electricity, possibly more than you produce. That's how it is at my house. I've got about a 5 kW system, which is on the smaller side. It does not cover everything I do, throughout the year, but it does cover everything I do often in the spring and the fall. And so I build up some credits in the spring and the fall, but in the summer and the winter, I use those credits and then more. But my bills have certainly gotten significantly reduced. So net metering is really a critical tool for rooftop solar. It's really this fair credit that's been established here. And we have a net energy metering guide, and I'll have Sukrit put that in the chat. And here's just a real simple example of the effect of net metering on your bill. So let's say you use 300 kilowatt hours. Doesn't matter if you're using it in the day, night, what have you, just at any point use 300 kilowatt hours. Before solar, you'd have to pay Dominion or your utility company for those 300 kilowatt hours. Now, let's say your solar system produces 250 kilowatt hours. Again, doesn't matter when or how that compares to what's being produced in your house. The difference there, the delta is 50 kilowatt hours. And so you would simply pay Dominion for those 50 kilowatt hours rather than the 300 kilowatt hours that you used to pay. You're also still going to have a fixed cost. So if you were to have a zero balance there at the end, a 0 kilowatt hours, you'd still have the fixed cost charged monthly. That's $658 plus tax. Usually that's $7 or $8 a month for folks, depending on their local taxes. And so that would be a minimum bill that you're going to have, even if you're fully generating electricity, just to be connected to the grid. The surpluses do carry over month to month. Although they will kind of reset at the end of that 12-month calendar year. Again, it's based on an annual billing cycle. Important to note, it's not January 1st. It's actually the date that your system is kind of installed, but really given permission to operate by Dominion. For me, that was in November. For you, it might be in the fall with this co-op. Again, usually it's a few weeks after you've gotten your system installed. You officially get permission to operate, permission to connect to the grid from your electric utility. All right, so we'll move on quickly to batteries. Power outages and batteries. Important to note that what happens when the power goes out is that your solar system is actually going to automatically shut down, because we don't want the power to backfeed onto the wires and electrocute a line worker. As I mentioned previously, your solar panels and the grid are kind of always in constant communication. And if your solar panels are generating excess electricity and trying to send it to the grid during an outage, that could be a really dangerous scenario for somebody working on that line. And so your inverters will automatically shut down your solar array. They're in constant communication with the grid. And once they sense that the grid is back live, then your inverters will turn your solar array back on. And so that's important to note for folks. Many folks think if they have solar panels, they can have power during a power outage, and that's not true. If you want to have power during a power outage, you need to have battery backup system. And so important to note, this is counterintuitive, so I want to stress it again. If you want to have power from your solar panels during an outage, you have to back them up with a battery system. And then the way that actually works is you kind of what's called island the power. You have to set up a little system and so that you're almost off the grid during those outages. It's also important to note that you probably will not be able to power everything in your house with your solar panels, especially something like an air conditioner, which is going to be a huge energy hog. Maybe you could power a really efficient mini split in one room or something like that, but a central air conditioning system is highly unlikely to be able to power unless you had a tremendously large and powerful system. But you probably would be able to power, a handful of lights, Wi-Fi, maybe keep your fridge on, some outlets so you could, boil some water or something like that. So kind of some basic things, but just want to make sure folks know that they shouldn't expect to have, the normal power capacity that they would when they're hooked up to the grid. And so what's the value of battery storage, right? If you only get to use batteries, during an outage, is that worth it to you? Well, that kind of depends. Do you have a lot of outages, right? Do you have something in your home that you really need to power? You can't live without, like a well pump or medical equipment or something else that you absolutely need at all times. Are you an emergency responder or disaster preparedness, and you really need to have access to power? Those are all factors that might tell you it is worth it getting a battery backup. But some of the disadvantages are the cost, the complexity. These are a lot more components, a lot more things that can fail, a lot more things to have somebody work on. There are a couple ways to potentially save some money, some pilot projects with utilities called time of use. This is where we have a whole webinar on this, and I don't want to get too deep into it. It's pretty complicated, but it's where you kind of, in essence, use more electricity in the middle of the night, and you're using your batteries. You're filling your batteries up almost in the middle of the night, and you're sending electricity to the grid during the day. It's a complicated process. You have to really be into kind of monitoring your electricity, and so does everyone else in your house, because it's not going to work if only one person is. Dominion started a pilot project. I think they tried to get 10,000 folks, and they've already done that. So I don't even know that it's open for new folks at the moment, although maybe they'll increase it at some point in time. But again, batteries are pretty complicated. And so unless you have some really emergency use need, it might not be the best option for you. But we do have a battery storage guide. We've actually done a whole hour-long webinar on batteries, and that's on our website, and I'll have to put that in the chat. And I'll take a break here to pause for any questions.
Sure. So I think I answered most of them, but I just wanted to run this by you, Ben. Someone had a question about getting the roof replaced after an installation. And are there any cases where a racking system will not have to be removed? There may be exceptions, but I think that's also, a requirement. If you're getting the roof replaced, the racking system also has to come off.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a traditional asphalt shingle roof or something like that, you're going to have to get the racking system taken off in addition to the panels.
Right. I mean, I can only think of one instance in a previous co-op where an isolated part of the roof was affected, so they got lucky.
Right.
But in 99% of the cases, the racking system also comes off. Just to answer Robert's question. Let's see. I just got another question in the chat. So, does the battery storage come standard with solar panels, or is this something extra that would need to be priced and installed? Ben, you want to answer this, or I'll be happy to.
It's definitely something extra. It'll probably, ballpark, it'll double the cost of your installation. And batteries are a challenge to get right now. You probably have heard about electric vehicles and everything else, and there's a tight market for batteries, any kind of batteries, right now, and so they're hard to get, and they're expensive. But yes, they are not a traditional part of the installation. Certainly, we usually in a co-op will have several folks that do get batteries, but it's maybe 10% at most, probably less than that, realistically.
Yeah, it's in my experience, like it's just a handful of folks who opt for the battery backup, so it's not the norm. I think that covers all the questions for now. Get on with it. Yeah, go for it.
Great. All right. Well, we'll move on to EV chargers, and you can install an EV charger as part of the co-op. And we really like to think of solar electricity as a local fuel, right? We certainly all know about the increase in gas prices here this year. And the best way to power your electric vehicle is with sunshine, because the price of sunshine does not go up. And here's just kind of a quick example. These numbers are rough and they can change, but they're just kind of a quick estimate in terms of the price difference between a gas-powered car and an EV car powered by solar. 11 cents, 11.5 cents a kilowatt hour is kind of a common price in Dominion territory. You can spend $400 and something a year on fuel with an EV versus $1,800 a year with gas, and that's at $4 a gallon. Dominion says it costs $1 a day to power an EV. That's when it's hooked up to the grid. Others say it's $1 a gallon. So any way you cut it, these numbers are rough. They're gonna vary and depend on your particular situation. But any way you cut it, it's a much better deal to power your EV with electricity and ideally with solar electricity. And so that brings us to EV chargers. What you can install with the co-op is a level 2 EV charger. So at its most basic level, there's kind of three main types of chargers. One is a level 1. The first one's a level 1, which is 120 volt, just your standard volt, the standard outlet that you would have in your house. That's a really slow charge. And then the kind of the most common, especially for a home, but also probably what you're seeing when you see in parking garages and elsewhere is a level 2 charger. So that's a 240 volt outlet like you'd have for your dryer or something like that. The charging speed can be up to 6 times as fast. Depending on your battery, that's 10 to 30 miles charge per hour. Usually you can get about 3-year warranty on those. And then the third kind of charger is really a high-speed charger, and those are almost industrial power. You'll start to see the kind of the superchargers. You'll see those sometimes along the highway and in other spots. But in most folks' homes, a level 2 charger would be the ideal. That should more or less fully charge an EV overnight. If you're thinking about installing an EV charger, some things to kind of think about are first and foremost, where do you want to put it? Or where can you put it? Maybe more importantly, do you have a garage where you can put it inside? Do you have a driveway where you're going to need to put it outdoors? Do you have any public? Do you have private space at all? Or are you on a street? Are you in an apartment? Do you have private space, or is it all public access where you might not be able to install it? Those are all important factors. Again, you mount it to a wall. If you're in a driveway, you might mount it to a pedestal. What type of electrical service do you have? As I mentioned, a 240 volt outlet might pull 30 to 50 amps. Do you have that in your panel? How far is your panel from where your EV charger is going to be? Because you're going to have to get an electrician. The installer is going to have to wire that. Are they going to punch through walls and different things, or is it fairly close to the panel, kind of a fairly easy install? Do you have network capability? That's kind of becoming best practice now, wireless internet, so you can kind of monitor things in your car. You can monitor charging, all those kind of things. How long's the cord, right? If you're parked in a garage, are you pulling over a car or whatnot, or you're in a driveway? So just making sure that it's practically gonna fit in there. Public access, as I mentioned, and then aesthetics. Is it something that you like? And so again, if you're interested in an EV charger, these are probably some of the things you should start thinking about. And in terms of what an EV charger costs, usually the unit can cost anywhere $500, $700 or up, just like anything. A lot of prices can go way up if you want them to, fashion or anything else. But at its most basic level, usually around $500 to $700 for the unit, $500 to $2,000 for the installation. Which will bring your total cost, to $1,000 to $2,500, $3,000 or so. And again, a lot of that depends on how easy the installation is, how close is your EV charger going to be to your panel, and what type of mounting is needed. People have to pour concrete and other things. A lot of important factors that could change the cost. There was a federal tax credit that expired on December 31st. There is hope that it will be resurrected, before the end of the year, at least before taxes are due in 2023. But like a lot of things kind of clean energy related, is up to Congress, and we just don't know how that's going to go over the next many months. But certainly encourage you to save your receipts and kind of just keep your fingers crossed that there will be a bit more of a tax credit for an EV charger installation. But right now there is not for this year. And then in terms of some frequently asked questions we get on a variety of things, warranties, like how long do the panels have warranties? Usually get, again, 25 years of production. They really maintain a solid efficiency. You get a 10 to 25 year manufacturer defect warranty is kind of the industry standard. Inverters can have a 10 to 25 year warranty. And then the workmanship, what you get from installers, usually 3 years to 10 years, and that's for something like a roof penetration or conduit run. Again, these are maintenance free. You don't have to clear the snow. You can let the rain clean them. They're hail resistant. Homeowners insurance is certainly something you should look into, and you should get. The solar array becomes part of your home. We found that most insurance companies out there either do not raise your premiums, or if they do, it's very negligible. There has been a company or two that doesn't really seem to understand solar and really significantly raises rates. And if you do find that, we encourage you to shop around, because that's definitely not the industry standard. As I mentioned, there's online monitoring, so you don't need to get on your roof. These systems, again, 25 years or more. Will an HOA allow solar on your house? And that a great thing about Solar United Neighbors, as I mentioned at the beginning, is we help fight for energy rights, and we've actually helped pass legislation at the General Assembly just a few years ago that made it much harder for HOAs to impose unreasonable restrictions on solar within an HOA. And so no guarantee at this point, but it's certainly your odds are much better than they were just a few years ago. And if you're in a historic district like Old Town Alexandria or somewhere, encourage you to work with the installer. They have a lot of experience working with the localities and getting permitting done in those places. And then I'll pause for questions if there's any.
Nope, I just covered one question right now in the chat. Someone just wanted to know if they can just, go for the EV charger in the co-op, which is absolutely an option. You can go for a solar system, the EV charger, or a combination of both. And as Ben said before, if you have joined the co-op and you change your mind, you would rather wait for the next co-op or, just wait, you're welcome to leave at any point before signing the contract. No questions asked, but no other questions at this point.
Great, thanks, Crit. And then finally, we'll get into the economics of solar, or the costs. We can see costs have dropped tremendously since the 1970s, and even since 2010, they've dropped 73%. We all need to recognize that solar is a long-term investment. As I mentioned, no moving parts and at a minimum of 25-year lifespan. It's really a great way to hedge against rising utility rates. As natural gas and other things become more expensive on the global market, if you have sunshine on your roof, you don't have to worry about the prices going up at your local utility because the price of sunshine does not go up. So the average return on investment we have in Virginia right now is usually between 9 and 13 years, although as utility rates increase, that number actually would decrease. So you get paid back for your system even faster because this is based off current utility rates. Rates usually rise in 2 to 3% a year. Dominion, they've actually increased 30% in the past decade. So that's 3% per year, year over year for 10 years. And then once you pay your system back, you're making free electricity. And it's really a tremendous feeling. As you can see, the cost of soft costs and system components are the two big factors here in terms of the cost of solar. And where we really come in and bring value, Solar United Neighbors, is by reducing those soft costs, right? And so that really is kind of marketing and promotion and education and all those sort of things for a solar installer. Labor costs are going to be what they are. You got to pay a crew. System components, your panels and other things which have come down tremendously, those aren't going to change very much. It's the soft costs where there's some wiggle room, and that's where we really bring tremendous value, and that's why we're allowed to get significant discount for members of the co-op, is because we help bring value on reduce the soft costs for those solar installers. Here's a really basic pricing example, and I know there's a lot of numbers, and I don't want you to get lost in the numbers. So I'm just going to tell you kind of what I'm going to explain here. This is kind of things you should know when you get your proposal about pricing, because you should know how your system's priced and how it's going to pay you back. And so there's net costs, there's net revenue or net profit, and that's kind of your payback. So again, these are turnkey systems. These are final prices. This includes permits. This includes taxes. This includes all in. right? There's no kind of hidden fees after this. Once you get your proposal from the solar installer, that's the price you're going to pay. So again, the numbers are less important than understanding kind of how it's paid back. So we're going to look at the 8 kW system on the far right-hand column, as that's a pretty common size. And so looking at the first column, we have a solar co-op at $2.75 a watt. So that's $2.75 times 8,000 or 8 kW, $22,000. Boom, that's what it's going to cost. That's what we're going to have to pay out of pocket. This assumes cash payment. We'll get into financing here in a bit. So cash payment, $22,000. For this year, there is a federal tax credit of 26% that you can take when you pay your taxes, next winter. That at 26% of 22,000 is 5,720. Important caveat to note: this is a tax credit, not a refund. So you must have tax liability of this amount, right? So you would, in this case, you would need to have a 5,720 federal tax liability. If you don't have that in a single year, you can roll it over and space it out over up to 5 years. But again, it's not a guaranteed if you don't have a federal tax liability. So you need to have federal tax liability, but you can get 26% off, and that would bring in essence, bring your total cost down to 16,280. And then you can see we have estimated year savings. Again, these are based off kind of traditional electricity rates. If they're kind of skyrocketing, which they might be doing or might be significantly increasing, these numbers would be even bigger, and you'd be saving and paying back sooner. So we have 1 year's electricity saving. Again, this is the money you don't have to pay, because we talked about net metering and your all the electricity your system produces, you're no longer paying for. And so that's part of the factoring and how you get paid back for your system. So your electricity bills, let's say, go down $1,100 for the year. And in 10 years, that'd be with a slight increase in the cost of your electricity. Hence, it's not just a 1,100 times 10, but we did a very conservative estimation that your bill would only increase $600 over 10 years. So 11,700. That would be your savings from your utility bill in 10 years estimated. You can see a lifetime savings we have over 25 years, 32,700. Obviously, that's significantly higher, more savings than the net cost. And then there's something called solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs. We've estimated that at $200 a year. And SRECs are really a voucher that you can trade in the market. We could talk for an hour about SRECs, but what they are at its most basic level is with a solar system on your roof, you become a renewable energy generator, producer. And in Virginia, laws have been passed that require utilities and Dominion and others to produce a certain amount of renewable energy every year. They don't have to produce that themselves. They can kind of buy those credits from solar farms and wind farms and other things. They can also buy it from you. And so there's a market where you have this credit, and you take it there and you get a credit, and you can sell that on the market. So we've estimated that at $200 a year. These prices vary and fluctuate and all sorts of things. So these are just kind of a rough estimate. We do have an SREC guide. I'll have Sakrit drop that in the chat. It's important to note that you get one SREC for every 1,000 kilowatt hours produced by your system. And whether you use it at your home or put it on the grid, that doesn't matter. And so, and SRECs can trade, I think right now they're trading around $50, maybe $60. Sometimes they're 30 or 40. It varies. It's like something in the stock market, so to speak. But it is a little bit of extra money in your pocket. And so again, lots of numbers I just threw at you. Don't want you to get lost in the numbers, but at most basic level, you got how much your system costs, you got a tax credit. Those are kind of the monetary things, the hard numbers, right, that you're looking at. And then the way it pays you back is your electricity savings, year over year. And the more that the price of electricity goes up, the more you're going to save. And then there's the solar renewable energy credits, or SRECs, that are vouchers that you can trade in the market and get a little bit of cash. As I mentioned, the federal tax credit for 2022 is 26%. This means and next year it is going to drop down to 22%. And similar to the EV charger credit, we're waiting on Congress to kind of extend that, because right now it is 0% in 2024. Important to note that the date that matters here is the day your system is installed. So if your system is installed by December 31st of this year, you would then be able to take the 26% credit. If it's installed at any day in 2023, you'd be able to take the 22% credit, and you know, any day in 2024. As of now, 0. Although certainly continuing this credit is part of the kind of the clean energy tax credits that have been discussed ad nauseum in Congress for almost a year now. Originally part of Build Back Better, and now, you know, potentially part of this this independent clean energy tax credit, clean energy plan. But you know, remains to be seen what happens there. So hopefully this gets extended, but right now 26% and 22%, which both are great numbers for the next 18 months or so. Excuse me. And then in terms of financing, as I mentioned, those are cash prices. So financing will increase the price a bit, and then, you know, your return on investment will take a bit longer. We do have a financing guide that I'll have Sakrit put in the chat. We certainly encourage folks to shop around about financing and get, you know, 2 to 3 offers, 2 to 3 bids. Different ways you can look at financing include a home equity line of credit. You could refinance your house and include solar. There's also various loan types. Most installers will offer financing either through themselves or through a partner. And then we also have special member access to a couple of credit unions that specialize in solar loans. And so Clean Energy Credit Union and Community First Credit Union are both credit unions that specifically are set up for, you know, solar and other kind of clean energy loan products. And I'll stop there for any questions.
No questions in the chat. I think we should be good, Ben.
Great. I know we're just about over our hour, so we're wrapping up here. And so what can you do next? What should you do next? Again, we certainly encourage you to join the co-op. Stay tuned for updates. The RFP phase, we've actually already passed that. So be ready for a consultation and installation. Encourage you to be a smart consumer. Encourage you to join our Virginia listserv and our Facebook page. And tell your friends and neighbors about the co-op. It is open all summer. Now is a great time to go solar. As we mentioned, the federal tax credit continues for the next 18 months. So definitely now is a good time, and especially as prices of electricity increase, your system will pay you back even faster. And it really feels tremendous to power your home with sunshine, and it feels tremendous to get electricity bill that's $10 or $20 or whatever it is versus 100 or more. So want to thank everybody for coming. Thanks to Helen, thanks to Sakrit, thanks to you all for your attention. If you need to reach us, you can certainly do so anytime at vateam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And with that, we'll let you go on your way and hope you have a great afternoon and a great rest of the week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.